Please just turn microphones on, please.
Bit of rain just to damp things down again. Yeah, perfect.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Glamorgan Spring Bay Council commencing at 2 p.m. Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Agenda item 1.2 is present and apology. Present we have Councillor Edwards, Councillor Luck, Councillor McQueenie, Councillor Woods, Councillor Young and Councillor Churchill. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Simons, is an apology. He had a long-standing family commitment for today. That meant he had to be absent from the meeting. In attendance, we have senior staff. We have Mr. Peter Porch, Mr. Alex Woodward, our General Manager, Sir Greg Ingham, and Mrs. Jasmine Kerr. Thank you. General Manager, are there any late reports?
No late reports.
No late
Madam Mayor.
reports. Thank you very much. Agenda item 1.5, declaration of interest. I now request elected members to indicate whether they have any interest personally or via a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors in any item included in the agenda. No conflicts. Thank you. Move on. Agenda item 2 is the confirmation of minutes. 2.1, the ordinary meeting of council on the 22nd of November 2022. Councillor Woods.
Thank you. I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 22nd of November 2022 at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McQueenie. The motion, all those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.2 is the date and purpose of workshops. Thursday, the 1st of December. There is a recommendation on page 7. Councillor Churchill.
Move that council notes the information.
Councillor Edwards, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried. Thank you. Tuesday, the 6th of December was another workshop and the recommendation is on page 8. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that council notes this information.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, thank you. Oh, yes, yes. Yes, Councillor Woods, of course.
I would like to thank the writer of this report for putting in my apologies due to work commitments. It's been a bit of a challenge trying to get to these workshops, and I was particularly sort of disappointed in the fact that I couldn't make the presentation from CoHealth, but hopefully with enough notice I'll be at the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is public question time. I think there are questions on, no questions on notice. No questions on notice. Agenda item 3.2 is questions without notice. And there are none without notice. No questions without notice. Thank you. And agenda item 3 is responses to previous questions which were taken on notice on the 22nd of November from the Bicheno Community Development Association. And there is a response from the General Manager there in relation to that matter. General Manager, do you wish to add anything else? Or
Yes, if I may, Madam Mayor. So the Bicheno Community Development Association is meeting tomorrow night and I'll be attending that. So it will be an opportunity to elaborate on the matters that they have previously raised.
Thank you, General Manager. Agenda item 4 is the Planning Authority. So under Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedure Regulations 2015, I hereby declare that the council is now acting as the planning authority under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for section 4 of the agenda. I have a motion to act as a planning authority. Councillor Woods.
Thank you. I'll move that council now acts as the planning authority at 2:06 PM.
Seconded, Councillor Young. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 4.1 is SA 2022/25, a 6-lot subdivision at 1 Canedia Place, Swansea. The recommendation is on page 24. Do I have a motion? Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Yes, I'll move that pursuant to section 57 Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay Council, SA 2022/25 at 1 Canedia Place, Swansea, CT 51405/1 for the subdivision into 6 lots be approved with the following conditions 1 to 39 plus advice A to T.
I have a seconder. Seconder, Councillor Churchill. Thank you. Councillor Woods, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor. I'll just reserve for closing. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor Luck.
Yes, I've just got a short statement against the proposal. And I think in the benefit of the community, I should read it for them to take my position.
That's fine.
I've read the reasons for the current planning delegations. I understand the risks in regard to costs and liabilities. However, I feel my role as a councillor is to represent. No, that would not be the right one. No. Sorry about that. I'll start again. I wish to acknowledge the statements made by the various community members in response to this development application. I share some of their concerns, but as the development application meets the criteria of the local planning scheme, I cannot consider those issues. However, I believe the issue of flood inundation has not been fully assessed, and I've not been supplied with the necessary qualified advice to allow me to make a fully informed decision relating to this important issue. The information required would likely be in the form of an independent certification from a qualified hydrologist outlining the full assessment process, including the risk analysis and mitigation steps relative to this application, and taking into consideration the extent of the local water catchment and the increase in rain events due to climate change. For this reason, I will not be supporting this development application at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Is there a speaker for the motion? Councillor Young.
Yes. I understand what Councillor Luck has said. Council recently adopted a statewide inundation report, but unfortunately the planning legislation and scheme does not entitle us to take that into account in considering whether we should approve a development application for a permit or not. And if we do take the question of inundation into account and knock back a development application, that would be knocking back a development application that complied with the scheme. And it might, from a general point of view, be something wise to do. But if we knock back a development application that in fact complies with the scheme, the risk is the developer will appeal, succeed, and we will be caught with the costs of the appeal because we used a non-planning issue to knock back the matter. So therefore I will support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill.
I just want to make the comment that I understand Councillor Luck's issues entirely, and I certainly can see that we have a lot of responsibility around stormwater issues and so forth as a council. But this report and this motion and recommendation and motion is carries with it a lot of conditions. And if you read condition 26, it says a stormwater management report must be submitted along with the engineering drawings. So that's yet to come, in my view. And I've got to say, I don't think I've seen a subdivision application where there's been so many conditions in the past, to be quite honest. And I don't think I've ever seen this one with the major stormwater system being designed to accommodate an ARI of 100 years. So 1 in 100 year storm event has to be part of this, of the signing off of this subdivision, as I understand it, and out of the report. So I feel that in supporting this application, which I will be doing, that I think we're doing the right thing because of the diligence of the conditions that have been put into this report. It's really quite extensive in my view. I couldn't think of much else to add. Thank you.
Speaker against or for? Councillor McQueenie?
A question.
A question to the planner?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So through the mayor to-
Mr. Bonner is in the room, so yes.
Just a quick question, and it goes to understanding the degree to which council might want to note the need or not around the trees that actually exist along one side of this. So you can sort of see from a developer's point of view that those trees might be easier out of the way for when work's done. And I'm just wondering around conditions that exist or not, around noting that discussion has to happen with council, having seen it happen, not in this council, but in other councils, that they just get removed.
Right. Mr. Bonner, are you happy to answer that question for Councillor McQueenie?
I am, through you, Mayor. We're talking about the trees on Old Spring Bay Road along that frontage.
The one that's not to have the footpath. Yes,
Yes, so those trees are located on council land,
that's right.
which was part of, so there's a road widening type strip. The only trees that would be required to be removed are for the placement of driveways.
Yeah.
There's no reason to remove any other trees. So I really think that would be minimised. There are a number of pine trees. There are some eucalypts that are in that group, but there are also are quite a few non-native trees.
So it's not practice to actually note that as a condition, that some trees remain or not, particularly the ones that
No,
are.
it's really be subject to when they go for engineering approval as to what we would look at then as to what trees can or can't come out.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any speakers? Any other speakers?
I'm not about to close. If I may ask a question,
Certainly.
through
Councillor
you
Woods.
to the planner.
Yes, yes, certainly.
As some of the councillors around here know, I'm sort of adverse to approving too much more subdivision or land in regards to the fact that we've had no, and this is pretty much an oxymoron given the state we're in at the moment, but with water, with Taswaters, they have not done any significant upgrades within the municipal area, and yet we are looking at another 6 lots, so hence another 6 lots of water use without any infrastructure improvements within Taswater. I haven't, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I did read the reports and everything, but I didn't see anything on Taswater's approval. Please show me if I did miss it.
Mr. Bonner, thank you.
Taswater have provided their conditions and they don't require an upgrade. It's really up to them. We don't include what we call the span. in the report to council, but it is something that we already have from Chas Water,
Mm.
and they have not raised any concerns about that. It's really up to them if there are infrastructure issues, supply of sewer or water, that's something they need to address as part of the application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll probably still be arguing the same point over and over again as they come into us. You know, it is a worry. It is a very big concern of mine. So we'll watch this space. And on that note, I won't need a closing debate, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other speakers in relation to this agenda item? On the basis that the mover does not wish to close debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Edwards, McQueenie, Councillor Arnold, Councillor Young and Councillor Churchill. Those against? Councillor Luck and Councillor Woods. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on. Agenda item 4.2 is SA 2022/31, 3-lot subdivision in Dolphin Sands. The recommendation is on page 40. Do I have a motion? Councillor Churchill.
I move that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay, SA 2022/24 at 1433 Dolphin Sands Road, Dolphin Sands, CT 54666/206 for subdivision be refused for the following reasons: failure to meet requirements of clause GSB P 1.7.1 P1 subdivision.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McQueenie. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'll speak briefly here because I think there'll be more to be said in item 4.6, which relates back to this. But just to say that this advice has come along with legal advice to council to support the refusal of this subdivision. Thank you.
Speaker against the motion? Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, I concur with what Councillor Churchill said, and I've spoke to the planner and director of this, and I think because of the legal advice we've been given, we're probably a bit curtailed in what we do, but I do have a large degree of sympathy for the developer where he has worked off information he'd been given and presumed it was correct. And to me, it's a bit of a can of worms. But I think that we're probably a little bit, we are given legal advice, so we need to take it.
Unfortunately, Councillor Edwards, it's often in planning, we as a planning or sitting as a planning authority tend to be damned if we do and damned if we don't, unfortunately. Are there any other speakers in relation to this agenda? Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand what Councillor Edwards has said. It'd be very galling to a developer to have spent a lot of money based on a scheme which is apparently okay and no order against it, or no order has been made rectifying any alleged problem. I'd reluctantly support the motion. There's not much more I can say.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Any other speakers in relation to the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 4.3 is again another subdivision in Dolphin Sands Road, SA 2022/34, a 4-lot subdivision. The recommendation is on page 47. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I move that Pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay, SA 2022/24 at 1433 Dolphin Sands Road, Dolphin Sands, CT 54666/206 for subdivision be refused for the following reasons. Failure to meet the requirements of clause GSB P 1.7.1 P1 subdivision.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor McQueenie, thank you. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak? Or
Same as the previous one. It'll be further considered under 4.6, might clarify some of the issues around this to the community. And I think it's important to leave it until then. It will put these two refusals of these potential subdivisions into context much better at that point. Thank you.
thank you, councillor Churchill. Any other speakers in relation to agenda item 4.3? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 4.4 is a DA 2022/262 5 by visitor accommodations at 15 Beatty Avenue. The recommendation is on page 60. I have a motion. Councillor McQueenie.
I will move that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay, DA 2022/269 at 15 Beatty Avenue, Bicheno, CT 205704-41 for 5 visitor accommodation buildings be refused for the following reasons. Failure to meet the requirements of clause 8.3.2 P1 B, C and D of 8 general residential zone in the proposal. Is not compatible with the residential character of the area and noise impacts from the proposal. The use will not cause an unreasonable loss of amenity. Failure to meet the requirements of 8.5.1 P6 A and C of 8 general residential zone in that noise impacts from the proposal have not demonstrated that the use will not cause an unreasonable loss of amenity.
Thank you, councillor McQueenie. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Churchill. Councillor McQueenie, do you wish to speak to the motion? No. Any other speakers? Councillor Churchill.
I just wanted to just to clarify that issue, that a lot of this is around noise and the potential for loss of amenity to nearby neighbours. The air conditioning units come very close to the boundaries, and this would potentially cause quite serious loss of amenity, I would have thought, to neighbours. I believe the normal required distance would be 10 metres. This is within 1.5 metres of the boundary. Certain structures have been put in but haven't been approved by our planners to be adequate to solve that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mayor. I reluctantly support the refusal, but looking at this proposal, it appears that air conditioners are one of the grounds to refuse, and I can understand why that is a valid ground for refusal. And the question of car parking is another. Looking at the plans that accompanied the application, it wouldn't take much of a twist to add a car park on the, I suppose, I don't know whether it's north, south, east or west, but the general uphill side, when you look at the paper, not down in front of you, but at the top end, to add a car park at the top, all you have to do is squeeze some of the units together closely. It'd be very simple to move the air conditioners away from the boundary. And it might add a bit to the expense, and it's a shame that the adjustments weren't made before the development application got to this stage, but it breaches the scheme, even if it's reasonably rectifiable. It hasn't been rectified, so I have to support the refusal.
Thank you, councillor Young. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, I'd just like to agree with councillor Young. I reluctantly support the motion as well, but and I completely agree with councillor Young's comments that it appears that it's not a difficult thing for the developer to remedy. So,
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor, if I may, I have a question for the planner, and it's only just come to my attention because of councillor McQueenie actually reading the motion. It's in the first dot point, and it reads, failure to meet the requirements of clause 8.3.2 P1B, C and D of 8.0 general residential zone in the proposal is not compatible with the residential character of the area, and noise impacts from the proposal, the use will not cause an unreasonable loss of amenity. My question is the second not correct? Mr. Bonner, please. Save my confusion, Mr. Bonner.
That is an error. I apologise. That second not shouldn't not be there. So it should read that they have not demonstrated the use. No, sorry. Sorry, I have to read that again.
So, Mr. Bonner, if I may, I'm reading it that it should say from the residential zone in the proposal is not compatible with the residential character of the area, and noise impacts from the proposal, the use will cause an unreasonable loss of amenity. Is that what we're saying?
That's correct.
So the second not is a typographical error.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm probably going to have to speak to the general manager in relation to how we deal with that, because the second not has been stated in the original motion, and I'm not totally sure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think we can just move, council can move a second motion, which has the second not removed.
We can amend it, or can we recognise it as a typographical error?
I'm not sure, in a planning authority, can you recognise it?
Mr. Woodward,
okay.
If I may, councillors, I will ask Mr. Woodward and or Mr. Bonner for advice around this. In the light of the motion being moved in the context of that it was written, Mr. Woodward, is council able to recognise that the second word not, or the second iteration of not, is actually a typographical error in the, or do we need a second motion?
Through you, Mayor, my understanding is that it's simply just a typographical error, and that it should just be, I guess, acknowledged, and as long as the mover of the motion accepts that, and the seconder, that there's an agreement with that, then I believe that should be suitable. However,
do we need to make a notation in the minutes to that effect, do you think? Or I'm just trying to get it right for the planning authority.
Notation in the minutes certainly wouldn't hurt.
Notation in the minutes. Right. Councillor McQueenie, you moved the motion.
Yep.
Are you happy to accept that it is that the second word not is actually incorrect? It is a typographical error.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The seconder?
Yes, it's a minor amendment as I see it. And am I right? It occurs in both dot points?
Value to me in the noise.
It's only the second one.
Yes, it may well be. Mr. Bonner, is that true? It's a failure to meet the requirements 8.5 in that noise impacts from the proposal have not demonstrated that the use will not cause. No, I think that's that's correct, isn't it? Because they've not demonstrated that it won't cause unreasonable loss. So the second dot point's fine, I think.
It's a double negative.
It's a
Madam
double
Mayor.
negative.
Pardon?
It's a double negative, Madam Mayor, but it's still,
Okay.
still correct.
Let's make it positive.
Yeah, so councillors, I will move on in that we will make a note in the minutes that we identified a typographical error in the motion, and we have the mover and seconder have agreed to that. So on that basis, if there are no further speakers, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 4.5 is the draft Tasmanian planning policies, the planning authority submission. I note we have our consultant planner, Mr. Purvis, is in the chamber with us today. So, oh, that's not. I've skipped one. Sorry, councillors. 4.4. Have I? No, 4.5. Okay. Oh.
Through you, Madam Mayor, can I just, for the benefit of Councillor McQueenie, who wasn't in the room at the time, I know our senior planner has met Councillor Edwards and Councillor Luck, but that is Mick Purvis, our strategic planner. This is Councillor McQueenie, one of the three newly elected councillors.
Thank you, General Manager. So we will move on to agenda item 4.5. There is a recommendation on page 64. Can I just preface this by saying that I consulted with the General Manager and he suggested that the mover of the motion need not read the full submission. So a motion that states something along the lines of that the submission is as included. Councillor Churchill.
I move the following submission be made to the exhibition of the Tasmanian planning policies as outlined below.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Woods, thank you. Councillor Churchill, would you like to speak to the motion?
Can I close the motion,
You,
please?
you may, if you
Thank
wish
you.
to close debate. That's it. I have no problem with that. Councillor Woods, as a seconder, would you like to speak?
I just want to make one comment, if I may. I'll have to speak up because it's now pouring
Yes.
water. On page 65, in the dot points there, it's remove overly restrictive language. Can you also add in there, and I'm being facetious by saying, can you please write it in layman's terms for us lay people to try and understand?
Could you say it again, please?
No. I was being silly.
No, not being
Yeah.
silly. I support that comment.
The
Simple language always goes down well.
I'm not sure that I'm not sure that is a
reasonable request.
I don't think it's an unreasonable request, Councillor Woods, to be perfectly honest, because at the end of the day, it can be quite restrictive, the language that's used. So, yes, layman's terms would be great.
Other than that, no.
Yeah. Are there any other? Councillor McQueenie.
Yeah,
And thunder and lightning. And we
Yeah.
might need to speak up just a bit, Councillor McQueenie.
In reading the paper that accompanied the recommended words,
You're going to have to speak up just a little bit. I'm
sorry,
sorry.
my voice has been going for the last
Sorry.
2 days, so I apologise, everybody. In reading what was put as the accompanying paper, there was some fairly strong language that cuts through that I think is potentially missing in the recommendation language. So as I had understood it, we wish to put this forward to be very clear that we think there are significant issues. And I think the statement on page 63 that says these policies have significant potential to impact the council's objectives to grow sustainable population, improving housing affordability, enhance and maintain and protect the agricultural community diversity, etc., are really clear as to why we don't feel comfortable of allowing this to pass without comment or a recommendation. So, and I think that clarity is missing in the beginning of this, or at least it could be improved by having something that says this is why we're putting it in front of you very clearly, and makes the risks to why we would bring this forward very apparent. what's here is important in terms of language around planning schemes and all this, but I'm not sure that cuts through if this is meant to land on the desks where people are considering whether they actually want to take a step sideways and do these things that we've asked to in terms of the review.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Purvis, but I believe that the issues that Councillor McQueenie have just raised were actually dealt with in the officer's submission that was submitted during the consultation period. Would that be a correct statement?
Were, but if you wish to reinforce the point, that we could add in an additional paragraph of those statements from the report into the submission.
And sorry, one other thing I just wanted to ask was who are we now sending this to in the context of the discussion that was had in the workshop around who we needed to make comment to?
Mr. Purvis?
Goes to the State Planning Office, and you may wish to also have it submitted to the Minister for Planning.
So if it's the minister, sorry if I may, if
No,
it's
you're
the
right.
minister that is the decision maker in terms of whether we actually move, whether they actually move to working groups, etc., then I think it's worthy of putting something that's more plain language into this statement that makes it clear from a political and community perspective why it matters, which is essentially those statements around the impacts, and that's why we're doing it as a cutting through to why we are making this submission, not so much just process issues around planning scheme stuff.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last couple of words.
To not so much just have the language that's in here at the moment, which is around process and schemes, etc., which I'm not sure. Forgive me for suggesting that the minister will have a detailed knowledge of what that actually is and why it would matter and how it affects his or her role in decision making.
Mayor, I don't quite understand whether Councillor McQueenie is saying, I like the proposal or it needs some refining.
I'm suggesting it needs some refining, some amendments.
We have time limit problems, have
Yep.
we not? Is it the sort of thing we ought to refine now after a short adjournment, or is it something that we ought to put off for another day long after the time limits have all closed? Mr. Planner might know.
I think I'd like to defer to Councillor Churchill as the mover of the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Taking on board Councillor McQueenie's comments, and you were the mover of the motion in accordance with this particular recommendation, would you have any objection to the submission being amended, tweaked, whatever, slightly to take account of Councillor McQueenie's comments? Councillor Churchill?
I would have no objection at all, because I just think that there's a whole lot of work to be done around this,
Right.
and that this is still only one step in the process.
A
And-
work in progress.
One
Yeah.
of the reasons I put the motion was to open up debate and get suggestions about what was going on. And having said that, I might as well say the other little bits while I'm here that I was going to say at the end.
Sure.
And that is without necessarily closing debate, by the way. I've been a bit bemused by this whole process right from the start, to think that all of this planning scheme's been pulled together without policies. Now, if that were council doing that, we'd get a serious rap across the knuckles. But this seems to have evolved for some reason beyond my knowledge, and how you do this without having policies around it initially is a bit beyond me. So we're playing catch up. We've got the opportunity to get policies around this thing now, statewide. I mean, this isn't just GSBC on the doing the work here, but statewide, we've got the opportunity to hopefully at least make these policies meaningful without a major time limit on it, because a lot of the work's already done. We just got to make sure that it all complies and the policies work with all the work that's been done. That's my view.
It's important to Councillor Churchill that we recognise that this is a whole of local government sector problem, not just Glamorgan Spring Bay. So Mr. Purvis, would you be happy to have a conversation with the general manager around the submission? Council, you've heard the debate from the councillors in relation to it. Are you happy to proceed along those lines?
Yes, Madam Mayor, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And for the benefit of the people that may be watching us on YouTube, if our audio is not great and you are not in the Orford Tribunna area that is currently experiencing a massive storm, we will try our very best to keep the audio up for you. Sure. Yeah. No, you're right. Oh, pardon? Yeah, that's right. Councillor.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
do you want to do a quick adjournment and the planners can work on the words for this
Sure.
and maybe the storm
Right.
has passed?
Yeah. So, councillors, with your permission, I would like to adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes. A couple of councillors have to make urgent phone calls in relation to their homes and with this storm, and it may give us some time for the storm to pass. And it will also give the planners time to look at additions to this submission. So if, with your permission, I will adjourn the meeting. We will resume at 3 p.m.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.